Mark Rogers TV talking Big 12 football, and of course, even with postseason play in front of us, and that's definitely my focus, recruiting at this time of year with the early signing period, a focus of many teams and many fan bases, especially those ones that are playing the lesser bowl games or completely shut out of postseason play. We bring in Taylor Midkiff from the Land Grant Gauntlet. So it's the LGG.com for Big 12 football coverage. So join him and the staff right there. And of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you've stumbled across us for the first time. It's college football from coast to coast. It's every conference and just about every team. If you dive into the videos, we bring in the best bloggers and broadcasters across the country to help us with the analysis. So we're talking Big 12 recruiting here, Taylor, and I got to hit you with this one right out of the gate because I'm not a huge recruiting guy, but based on what I do, I've got to get to guys like you and bring in the knowledge base to help me sort this out. And Kansas was a team that was on the radar early in the rankings process for 2018, and some of us were like, okay, something's got to be up here if Kansas is in the top 5. We understand it's very, very early. And certainly 3 and 4 months ago, but it was just kind of interesting to see Kansas among the Ohio States and Penn States and USC's up there in the top 5, but that hasn't necessarily held.
Right. So Kansas has, I'm blanking on his name right now. One of their assistant coaches is a New Orleans, he's from New Orleans originally. David Beatty brought him on, I think, either 2 years ago or last year to coach running backs. And this guy was an ace recruiter, and he came in and he had a plan. He said, I'm going to go into Louisiana. I'm going to use the connections that I have, and I'm just going to recruit this group of guys and sell them on being the face of change for Kansas. And it worked. They were able to secure 6 or 7 commitments from highly rated Louisiana players in the span of almost a week or a month, and they were sitting in the top 10. Then those guys started to just kind of second guess and get recruited, and kind of the season that Kansas had really kind of put everything on a downfall. So you had guys like Jamar Chase as a wide receiver out of Louisiana who was recruited to Kansas for about a week. He backed off that, was recruited to Florida for a long time, and now he's backed off that commitment. And now it seems like TCU and LSU are the leaders for Jamar Chase. Another wide receiver is Tavalance Hunt, who is a 4-star wide receiver out of Texarkana, Texas. He's committed to TCU now. Recently got selected to play in the Under Armour All-American game, and is one of the most underrated recruits in the state of Texas. Devonta Jason is another wide receiver out of New Orleans, who just decommitted from Kansas within the last couple of days, actually. He's a Mississippi State lean right now. Those are just 3 of the 4 stars, but you also have a number of guys like Clayton Tune was a quarterback out of Hebron, Texas, and he's decommitted. And so it's just been kind of a really slow fall for Kansas. They only have 8 recruits committed in this class right now, and the early signing period is 8 days away, just over a week away. Commits can start to sign, and that puts a lot of pressure on David Beatty and that Kansas staff to get things going. And it's a little odd because Beatty is known as a world-class recruiter. That's kind of what he was known for as just a quality recruiter, and it just hasn't been panning out at Kansas. So I would expect them to go a lot with JUCOs, and they're just going to have to work down their lists.
Corian Harris is a player that, at least according to the 247 list right now, is still a commit to Kansas. He's their one 4-star commit that's still in place. And as you mentioned, the 90th class that's got 7 3-stars out of the 8 commits. So if they're able to hold those guys at Kansas, the 3-star guys can be the foundation of the program. Tony Hall, I believe, is the guy that you're looking for with that Louisiana connection. And there's a scat of articles about him and what he was able to do, at least in the early portion of the recruiting process there. But it's got to be a tough sell. You got to think to Kansas, regardless of the relationships you build, you really have to sell. Do you want to be part of something special, something historic, if you're going to get to not even selling championships, but selling major bowl competition, being relevant in the Big 12 versus what Kansas is able to deliver right now?
Yeah, and if you don't have winning seasons to point to in your recent history, you have nothing really to sell, because that's more or less the bottom line for a lot of these recruits is they want to win. And the last time Kansas really won was 2007, 2008. We're talking almost 10 years ago. All of these recruits were 7, 8 years old the last time Kansas was winning with regularity. And so it's just a hard sell. If you don't have the pedigree, like Texas has also struggled for the last decade, but they have the pedigree. They have national championships. They have Vince Young. They have things that they can point to, and they're the flagship of the state that produces the best talent in the country. And so it's a lot easier to deal with inconsistent success if you're Texas than it is if you're Kansas. And that margin for error is just so much smaller for a school like Kansas.